What's going on, podcast listeners? My name is Michael Chernow. I am a restaurateur and lifestyle entrepreneur, and I am truly obsessed with living a life better than yesterday through wellness, fitness, and good vibes. I've always wondered if the drive to succeed is something we are born with, or if it's something that is made over time through grit, drive, and perseverance. I get to answer that question exactly, and the goal of this podcast is to talk with people that have absolutely crushed it in life and have inspired me to do the same. This is Born or Made. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. Today, I have a guest on the show that is the best in the world at what he does. And the ability to be able to talk to somebody like that is rare and fucking awesome. Literally the best in the world. Henry Cejudo is an MMA fighter. He fought with the UFC for a number of years. He's a 2008 gold medalist in freestyle wrestling. He is champion in both flyweight and bantamweight. Only 4 people on the planet have done that. And arguably, he's the best pound for pound combat fighter of all time. Henry, I'm fucking fired up to have you on this show. Welcome.
Man, you got me fired up with that whole introduction. but you ain't lying. You ain't lying.
Hey, man, you know, I gotta start off by saying I re-listened to your Joe Rogan podcast in June, and you said so many things on that podcast that resonated with me. I think one of the most important things that I heard on that, well, there was a lot of incredible things that I heard on the podcast, but one of the most important things I heard on that podcast was the amount of time and energy you put into efficiency in your training. And also that you only have 3 to 4 intense workouts a week because you believe that recovery is arguably as important, if not more important, than the actual training.
Yeah, well, it's exactly that's exactly how it is. I mean, obviously you're training. So I've structured this whole program. So I came up with this thing that I call the art of war. And I'm actually going to be heading out to Boston here to be doing some filming on just complete mindset. And I'm going to be talking about how I'm able to connect the mind, body, and science all together because it's a separation. And it takes discipline to do this. So when I do compete, it's all about quality. It's all about investing in the days that really matter. You know what I'm saying? So it's like leading up to what is it that I do in my sport, which is fighting, which is MMA. You know, I got to be able to. My whole training's got to go around that stuff, and it all goes down to just great quality training. You know what I'm saying? Like it's no because everybody can give a 10, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can give a 10, but not everybody. Everybody can give everybody can give what they have 5 to 6 days a week, but doesn't necessarily mean you're getting better because you can just overcompete. You can overcompete to the fact where you do not get better, and it's not a good thing. You know what I'm saying? So I've been able to develop this whole system based on numbers because the more you understand your threshold, the more you understand how to finish the race, the more likely you're going to become just a better fighter because you're going to have more knowledge with time, with distance, with timing, when to take risks and things of that matter. So it's been fun, Mike, because since I retired, I've been able to think on this. And when I show my plan to the world, like it's going to be so specific, like people are going to just trip out because it's not just a believe and achieve thing. Like, no. You have to have the ability. You have to have the right engineers. You have to have the right mindset. And you got to put yourself in deep waters. You see, it's like I always tell people, it's like training or success. It's like, you know, let's look at the Bible, for instance. If you really look at the Bible is not alive. The Bible is not just a book that you just read that's done by one author. The Bible is complex of many different scriptures and letters that's been located in a book. And it's your job to know the whole material. It's your job to understand and connect the dots and whatever, is that this book is actually telling you. So it's the same thing with with mixed martial arts. I think just the success in general, it's success, it's complex. It's not complicated, but it's complex, but at the same time, it's simple.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You just
Simple,
simplify the thing.
not easy.
Simple, not easy. But when you see the complex, but you have to understand the complexity side of things. And when you understand the how complex it is, then you can cut it your way. Then you can have it your way. You know what I'm saying? What is it that the road that I wanna? What is it the road that I wanna lead myself to? Would this give me the best probability of winning? You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like there's also got to be a scientist behind that, and it's all about honesty. The reason why I've been able to become successful, because to me, your sport, when you start your first sport, it starts from inspiration. You're inspired. You're in love with it. But you know what happens too after love for so long, that it slowly becomes a business, and to it's your job to make it into the best business possible, because love does go away. This is why the greatest emotion of them all is gratitude, because it lasts a lot longer, because love is so high that it's crazy. So what I've learned that's happened in my career and in my life, Mike, is I started loving wrestling. It started with just the love and the passion of it, of everything. And then you get to a certain point, even leading into the Olympics, you get to a certain point where the love and the inspiration, it starts to leave you a little bit. But that's when you have to become that businessman. That's when you have to make that transition. Be like, hey, I could still win, but it's all going to come down to honesty. I got to cut people out. So these are some of the things that I did coming up in a sport like mixed martial arts. Like I completely cut I completely had to get rid of people, even if they're good people. I had to find the right people, and not just because they're good people, they're good for me. Like, no, it's about finding the right people. And I
Let me ask
created
you a
things from
question.
love to business.
So
Yeah.
the podcast is called Born or Made, and what the objective here, and I know that you have a lot of opinions on this just based on the interviews that I've listened to about with you. The objective of the podcast is to sort of dissect this question, whether people are born with an innate ability to crush it, or if they were made over time. It's the nature nurture question, right? And uh, I think it's a very interesting question. And the way I like to get there with my guests is to sort of walk through their story. I would love to understand why you became fell such in love with wrestling at such a young age. And I know that there's a lot of adversity in your story. So I just want to unpack that a little bit and understand who Henry Cejudo is from way back when as a young buck coming up, and probably learning pretty quickly, I would imagine, that you had something special.
Yeah, and I think so. To talk about nurture nature, I think I fall into both categories, because I do believe I was born with the natural gift of a mindset where I just knew that I was just different, even though being born in the ghettos, even though being a poor kid sleeping on the floor, like one of 7 kids raised by a single mother, born in South Central LA. Um, I knew that all that stuff was temporary at a very young age. As a 4 or 5 year old kid, it was a trip.
Tell me about that though. I want to stop there. So when you say that you knew that at 4 or 5 years old, you knew that it was temporary. Like, can you actually go back and remember a moment where you said, I know that I'm going to pull myself out of this. There's no chance that I'm not going to live a life beyond my wildest dreams.
N- No, I don't think it was necessarily like that, because I knew that it was just a matter of time. You know what I'm saying? It was just a matter of time for me to find something that I loved, even at that age, something that I'm going to dedicate myself to. And that was it, man. But I think when I was 9 years old, so one, I knew I was different. I knew I was special. I remember playing with kids. I swear to you, I remember playing with kids like prior to wrestling. and I already had like some pretty good wrestling instincts. Like it was a trip. Like
Like at
just
how
something,
old?
just some. Man, I remember this. Remember this. I remember just wrestling with some kids like out in the park or whatnot. Kids that you just meet, you just start wrestling. I was probably maybe about 8 years old. But I remember already doing a double leg takedown and penetrating like things that are just unreal, dude. So by the time I was 9, I remember watching the Olympics. It was '96. I remember watching Michael Johnson shatter the world record with his infamous gold shoes in the 2000 and the '96 Olympics. And I remember that's the day of the inspiration of becoming an Olympic champion came about. It wasn't in wrestling. It wasn't in nothing. It was just I wanted to become an Olympic champion once I saw the '96 Olympics. So by the time I was 11 years old, so I grew up in a Mexican neighborhood. Like I grew up in apartments my whole life. And if you didn't speak Spanish, like in my neighborhood, like you get lost in America. Like you don't belong here. You know what I'm saying?
Like
Yeah,
all
I
the
grew up
signs
with
on the stores were Spanish. Everything was written in Spanish.
yeah, not just that, not just at the stores or whatnot, but it was more in the community. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everybody from from people that anyhow, just Mexicans and Mexican immigrants and people that probably didn't come over to the country so politely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with that. So I'm a patriot American, but I grew up. I probably grew up. Well, not probably, but I grew up with as an American patriot. I grew up more Mexican than anything. But I've always had the patriot like in my heart since I was a
Mm.
kid too. You know what I mean? It was always America, America from watching the Olympics. You know what I'm saying? So by the time I was 9 years old, I was inspired. By the time I was 11 years old, I I started. I found the sport of wrestling. But prior to that, in the neighborhood, these drunk Mexican guys used to make us fight. And if you're victorious, if you would win the fight, they would give you a Mexican candy. So as a kid, I knew. So now we're talking about nature nurture again. Uh, the nurture side of where I grew up, it was man, I knew that it was meant for me because it wasn't so much of the Mexican candy, but it was more the love of competition, the love of the love of getting something, of being able to overwhelm your will on somebody, if I may say. As a kid, vicious, vicious too. So by the time I was 11, I found the sport of wrestling, and it was just love at first sight, man. It was love at first sight. I remember seeing the principal like hand medals to the kids. I was young, man. I was probably about 11 years old, and I remember like my life just changed like forever, dude. I was like, man, this is the sport that I wanna go to the Olympics in. And sure enough, you fast forward it. I was 20 was it? Yeah, 10 years later. I was about 11. 10 years later, I'm hearing the national anthem, hearing the American flag quiver up.
Whew.
Surreal, bro.
Woo.
Surreal, man.
Wow. That must have been.
So so it's like the nurture, the nature. I feel like I was born with this gift. And it's sometimes I was talking to my friend Michael Zenga, and he was like, he's like the best people in the world. He said, you know, like they believe they believe they were born with this with to be the best. It's like, man, you just have to it's not that you're born with it. You got to believe that you're born with it. You know what I'm saying? So it was the nature, and then obviously the nurture. You're a product of your environment. Growing up in the ghettos, Mexican immigrant. My mom's when people talk about the immigrant mentality, I know exactly what they're talking about because my mom was that working 2 to 3 jobs. So as a kid, that was my example. Like no excuses. Like she would get up every day. She would do her best, like inside the house, to do her job as a mother. But man, as a worker, I was like, God, leave, man. I rarely even see her, but it was the attitude of no excuse. So you owe it to both. I think it's a complexity of both, and it's different for everybody because some people do have natural abilities. And when some people do just have natural abilities, then it changes. It doesn't, because typically I go like this, Mike. I go dream, sacrifice, victory. It starts off with inspiration. You sacrifice, you accomplish the victory. But it's more complex. Like I talked about, like how I gave the Bible verse. Like it's different because it becomes more when you have the ability, you understand that you have the ability, that you know that you're meant and you're great at something. Then it becomes like this: you keep the ability number one, and because you know that you're great at it, not good but great at it, then it becomes the vision. The reason why I don't use dream on this one, because when you know you have the ability, it becomes more profound. It becomes a vision. You know what I'm saying?
It's no
And then
longer a
three,
dream. Mm.
it's no longer a dream. It's a vision because you understand that you have a certain gift. So it's all about consistency and isolating that, right? And anyhow, so it's ability, vision, and then consistency, and it's constantly consistency of finding the right engineers, of going to training every day, of being consistent with time, being consistent with the trend, and being consistent with constantly evolving and constantly adjusting. So like I said before, there's 1,000 ways to success, and I just love to break it down in whichever way, because you see these guys, and we all know them. There's some of these football players that have the ability, but sometimes what they lack is they lack the heart. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like they
want to I
lack
want
the.
to I want to ask you a question about success, because you say there's 1,000 ways to success, and you are without a question of a doubt on the other side of success right now. I mean, you have accomplished so much in your life. Uh, there's not a single person on the planet that wouldn't consider you, a very successful, if not elite, successful person. What does success mean to you?
Man, success to me, it's godly. That's a question. I don't get that question asked to me quite often. Let me see. What is success to me? Success to me is the dream. You know what I'm saying? It's not everything. Success is not everything. Accomplishment is not everything. But success is manifesting the dream. And everybody has a different dream. Because at the end of the day, it's you live within you. You are you. What is it that's gonna, what is it that you're determined to do on a mission to be able to manifest this idea that you have? You know what I'm saying? So that's what success is to me. You really want to know. We're just talking about we're not talking about purpose or anything like that. Unless we talk about purpose,
I,
then
I'm,
then
I'm,
that's different.
I think they all personally, for me, throughout my life, like I think they've all sort of culminated together: the success, the purpose, the business mission, the family mission. I believe that they've all sort of culminated together, and I've found that success for me, even though I've had financial success and business success and personal accomplishments in fitness or whatever, success for me is being okay in the moment, dude. Like being able to actually be present and totally fucking okay with that, no matter where you are. Because I think a lot of people tend to run from the good and from the bad. They literally are so uncomfortable in their own skin. A lot of people, that they run from the good and the bad, and the moment doesn't exist in their lives. So they spend a lot of time in the past and thinking about the future. And so I've honestly thought about, because I a little bit of my story, like there's no doubt that martial arts changed my whole entire perspective on life. Without a doubt, saved my life. Absolutely saved my life. Taught me everything I have today when it comes to discipline, structure, self-confidence, ability to get hit, ability to get back up. All that shit I learned through Muay Thai. And I think what I've ultimately come to the conclusion of is that, like, being present in the moment is probably the most important piece of life, because everything happens now. Nothing happens
Mhm.
in the past. Nothing happens in the future. It all happens right now. And so that's my definition of success, being comfortable in the moment, being able to really, really be cool in the moment, you know. And like when I was listening to what you said about the Johnson fight in this, when you won, you said that, you know, he said about you that you were the most relaxed fighter he's ever fought. That was the one thing that he said, that he was like, wow, he was blown away of how relaxed you are. And I think that that is the definition of success for me,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, like I said, whatever speaks to your heart, whatever pulls those heartstrings and this is why I'm saying, where there's a thousand reasons to success, there's a thousand feelings that motivate and you know what I'm saying, and help people. You know, the fundamentals are always right. Hard work, dedication, like those are the fundamentals. Like you have to have that to be successful, you know. But at the end of the day, it's all about, man. It's all about relationships with the people that you have around you. You know what I'm saying? It's the you know, people need people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
That's
I'm
it.
saying? So this is why, even as a fighter, even as you know, as a mixed martial artist, that's, you know, I've accomplished from Olympic gold to 2 UFC busts. But the people that I admire most in my life, that I truly, that could be like, dude, that I admire the most in my life, are great fathers, are family men, are great mothers who you know, who dedicate themselves to their kids, who, you know, who become those mentors to their kids. You know what I'm saying? The people that produce, the people that produce great fruit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like those are the people, because those are the people that really practice what they preach, because their kids are a replica of what they are. And when I see something like that, because, you know, I grew up without a dad, but when I see my brothers, the way they are with their families, my sisters, the way they are with their family, and how they become that family, it all goes back to my mother. You know what I'm saying? Even though we're born in that certain situation, like the love that we have towards one another and towards our family, even though we never use the word love to each other, you know, it's demonstrated through time, through effort, through, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
it's that's me. And the other thing too that I would say is, like, even contentment. Contentment is success too. Being content in the position that you're in, being content with uh yeah, with the position that you're in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not always, when I travel to these places all across the world, some of the most happiest people, like, you'll ever run across. Some of the most happiest people you'll ever run across. They don't got a freaking pot to piss in, but you know what they do have? They have enough to survive. They have each other, and there's a whole bunch of charisma, man.
What do you, you know, pain is something that I think a lot of elite performers in all aspects of life have a high threshold for. How much do you think that plays a role? I mean, obviously in combat sports, you got to be comfortable with pain, but just in general, do you think that the ability to endure pain at a high level gives you an opportunity to go further?
Oh, absolutely, man, absolutely. I'm gonna give you an example. There's a difference between being strong, and then there's a difference between being, you know, being able to take pain and go through pain and still moving forward. You can be strong, but doesn't mean you can take pain. I'm good friends with Mike, man, Uncle Mike Tyson, which he fights today.
Whew, it's gonna be a
And I
good
re
one.
and I re yeah, uh and I remember asking Mike, I'm like, hey Mike, you know, who's the greatest of all time? He's like, Ali, the greatest of all time. And I was like, Mike, what made Ali so different? What made Ali great? And then he's like, man, that's a good question. And so he kind of like looks down. It probably took him about a good maybe 15 seconds to kind of answer. And he said, you know what made Ali so great is the fact that the dude could just endure so much pain. Like, the dude would get hit, and yet it would be deceiving. Like, he would play like these mind games with these guys. But he said, you know, he would get hit in the shoulders and the head and everything, but yet there was a certain callous. So being able to endure and take pain, man, it's a certain willpower that these people tend to have. You know what I'm saying? That not the average person could take. It's like a Navy SEAL. The Navy SEAL could take more pain than probably just the average person. And this is why these are the killers of the killers. You know what I'm saying? Is because they're strong, but the fact that they can give it and they can take it.
What do you think the breakdown of mental to physical is when it comes to pain? What percentage of it do you think is mental stability compared to just actually being able to power through physical pain?
I think it's a mixture of both because there is a separation of mind and body. You know, there is, as much as people think it's a 90% mental. It's like, no, it starts with the mind and it ends with the mind, but your body's got to be prepared for the mental side of it. You know what I'm saying? So it starts with the mind and it ends with the mind, but you got to deliver it through the body. You know what I'm saying? The body's got to be prepared. Your preparation is your weapon. So unless it starts here for sure, it comes here, and then you like it's almost like it's a cycle. You re-challenge it, and you have to find that certain nirvana, that certain peace through mind and body when the tough gets going, and you got to be able to cruise it, man, and be like, hey, man, this is just it. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're alive, and if it doesn't happen, then you'll die. You know what I'm saying? But it's your job to cruise it and understand that threshold during when the tough gets going, when it's mind and body, and because your mind will play games with you, but your body has to tell the mind, no, 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 we're still good, or vice versa. The body may be going, and the mind's got to check it. So you're constantly being checked left and right. So
I had an
it's
experience.
different.
I had an experience that made me really question the mind body sort of relationship. And I was running in the marathon in New York City in 2018, and I felt gravy 95% of the race. And then in mile 25, you start, you're in Central Park and you make this big, like slow, long turn. And that's when all of a sudden, you're running and you look to your left, you look to your right, and there are just people laid out everywhere. There are just people by the hundreds just on the floor, where they just sort of thrown in the towel. And my mind started playing crazy tricks on me. Like really sort of, my ego stepped in a real way and started saying, dude, you're done. Like, look at everybody around you. It was like, I felt like I was in a war zone. And God is my witness. Both quads seized up like that. Boom. They literally locked and I couldn't take a step. It was the craziest thing
Mm-hmm.
ever. And then somebody saw me sort of like stop out of nowhere and roll up and just started screaming because I had my name on my shirt, screaming my name. And I started saying in my head, mind over matter, mind over matter, mind over matter. I pounded my quads for like 30 seconds and then they just completely released, man. And I finished the fucking race. But it's just I just believe that for me personally, the mental strength has been such a godsend when it comes to perseverance and getting through things, and I would imagine that for you, your mental capacity far surpasses your physical. To get to the level that you've gotten, there must be there's you have a wiring of unstoppable, period. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I just it just it I can't imagine that there is many people like you that are able to get to the levels that you've got. Well, we know that, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just so curious about the mindset, the mental component.
Yeah. Well, remember, like there's two people as a fighter, as a competitor, as a combat athlete. There's two people that you fight. There's your opponent, and then there's your inner soul. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I say the inner soul is because our mind is also wired, man, to to think, to just think and go off the deep end. You know what I'm saying? At times we do not have control of it because it's just, or we want to say we have control, but we really don't in reality because it's so complex up here. So there's always two things that you fight before you fight. First of all, like yourself, You know what I'm saying? The mind games. What I typically like to do is I typically like to challenge that. So whenever the doubt does creep into my mind, now it becomes a mission. Okay, how can I use that doubt and now turn it into mission to prove to myself, to prove to my soul that I belong here and I can continue to keep setting the bar higher. You know what I'm saying? And then the other thing is your opponent. You gotta respect the dude that's in front of you, man. So sometimes it's not all about you. Sometimes you gotta respect the other man's skill, because what if he has the same mindset at you? What if he has the same mindset as you and just as great as and just as great of an ability as you? So you also have to respect. So even when I do compete, I have a calculated plan. So when it comes to the mindset, it's like it's I gotta beat this guy and I gotta find a way to beat him according to his style. And can my style alone, after I challenge my inner soul, can my style, looking at it, that comes down to honesty, could my attack game beat his attack game? And it all comes down to honesty, because if I can honestly say, okay, I got a lot of strengths, but if his attack game, his offensive game is better than mine, then I turn it into a card game, and I'll be like, okay, if that's the case, then the focus is gonna have to be more counterattack in order for me to beat him. You know what I'm saying? So it's all calculated. So I call it my five senses when I compete. So when people tell me, what is it that you feel when you compete? And these are my five senses. It's attack, counterattack, anticipate, feel, and take risk. These are the five things when I compete, when I'm in the octagon, when I'm locked in that cage, these are the things that I feel. So according to the game plan, to the 8 week fight camp, is according to how I'm gonna fight this opponent. You know what I'm saying? So in order for you to beat the one percenters like a John Jones, a Demetrius Johnson, a GSP, you're not going to beat him with attack. You're not going to beat him with your counter game, anticipation, or maybe even feel. The only way you're going to be able to beat the one percenters, this is the stuff that you have to understand, is you have to take risk. You have to give them and hit them with the unpredictability. You know what I'm saying? Things that they're just not expecting. Because as a fighter, as a one percenter, these are the guys that are dangerous to me to fight. Guys that go out there and just throw out the kitchen sink. You see what I'm saying? So we all have these gifts, and when you're able to calculate all this stuff down and then put the focus, and it's just so it's not just the like I said before, it's a complexity thing, Mike. And understand it's the art of war. Understand who you're fighting. Understand it's not just based on will, but calculation.
How would you, I mean, that's fucking brilliant. And I think that that's probably the ability to articulate it the way you've just articulated it. That ability is probably what makes you so successful in the ring. I mean, I have a few questions about that. One, so now that you're retired, and who knows if you come back, right? Who knows, depending on what the situations are, I guess, at the time. But now that you're retired, the fight game has really like sculpted this perfect sort of way you look at situations and scenarios. How would you, or do you think that you could easily implement those systems into the business world?
Oh, of course, of course. It's almost like they belong to. I feel even though haven't done it in business, but I already have a vision of doing it in business. You know what I'm saying? And I think now for business, because of the things that I've been through, now it's just about finding the right people. Like I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, but I'm also smart enough to know that I need the right people to be there. You know what I'm saying? To appoint the right people. And I think for me the biggest thing is just going to be leadership. It's building a cult, if I may say, of people that are going to help me push the same car, the same vehicle. You
That
know what I'm
is
saying?
it, by the
So
way. The cult, that, it's so interesting that you say that. Not a lot of people think about it that way. But when you break down the word culture, and I believe culture is everything. I believe it's everything, specifically in business. But when you break down the word culture, cult is the beginning of that word, right? And so all successful businesses are cults. There's always somebody that is at the helm of these successful businesses that are able to convince a large group of people to want to fight, kill, and do whatever they got to do to make it successful. And that is ultimately what a cult is, right? And so I agree. I think that there's this real the ability to lead a group of people to want to believe in your mission is exactly what these crazy cult followers or these cult leaders have. They have the same exact ability to connect, because in my experience, it's about connecting. You know what I mean? Like, I think the emotional intelligence is finally becoming the star of the show. You know, the ability to get a large group of people around you to believe you, and then not only believe you, want to kill for you. Literally wave the flag high as they can, wear the jersey, you know, walk around and talk about it. And that stuff is important. You know, I think that's what a lot of very smart people potentially don't have. And they're also so very smart that they don't think that they need great people around them, because, you know, they believe that they're the ones. If you were to step into business, and I'm sure you will, what would it be? What are you thinking about?
It would be real estate. I'm actually into real estate now. I'm doing real estate development. So I'm doing. I love the real estate game, and the reason why is, Mike, I love freedom more than anything. You know what I'm saying? So I can do anything, create anything into money, but it's all for the freedom. Like, I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is why I love real estate. I love changing the city. I love building a house. I love building homes. And change the city at the same time, make money, and it allows me to travel. Allows me to be me. Allows me to do, to fly, man. I'm a bird, dude. Like, I can't, I can't. It's hard for me to stay in one place at one time. It's like, no, I love to see. I love to, you know, to 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 experience, man. To experience life.
We've got about 20 minutes left, and I know it's on the weekend, and I'm sure you got a lot of shit to do. So I want to just pound through some of these questions that I wrote down. One question that I think is just a fun one that I didn't write down, but I really would like to know, what goes through your mind when you're walking to the Octagon, from the locker room to the Octagon?
You know what? I just nothing. I try. It's crazy. I try not to feel nothing. As crazy as that sounds, I try not to feel anything, because I already know that by the time I get into the cage and the ref starts, goes to the instruction, take this out to the corner. I get into like my little crouch position. Like, so if you watch me, I get to my little crouch position. These are reminders right before I compete. So I tell people all the time, nothing really matters until the ref blows the whistle. You could be going through doubt. You could be doubting yourself like crazy. You could be feeling like shit or whatever. Nothing matters until that ref says fight. So to me, it's like, and this is why, like, even like right before I fight, I crunch down. I would do this in wrestling quite a bit. I would do it in wrestling, where I would be on my knees, and as soon as they call my name, I'd stand up. And those are just indicators, knowing like, all right, man, it's time for war. My body just got prepared for that stuff. So every time, so when you talk about, I don't feel nothing. I really don't feel nothing going into the cage. But when I do sit down and the ref is calling me and I'm getting ready and I get up and I start clapping my hands, that's when I know I'm ready to fight. You know what I'm saying? That's when I know, okay, man, I got my senses alert. I got my five senses: attack, counterattack, and take field, take risk. Now it's going out there and just being a killer, man, being a calculated killer in the octagon.
One last question before I get into these, because that five senses thing, I think is so is crucial to this conversation. Which one of those five senses are you most comfortable with, and do you tend to lean most on?
Yeah. Well, my gift. Well, let me go through them all. That's cool. May I?
Yeah.
What is it? What is attack? Attack is somebody that, and these are all gifts. You have all of them, or you may have all of them, but they're all based on numbers. You have one more than you have one more than others, but you're going to use more likely two out of the five. Or that could be the emphasis. So what is attack? Attack is it's a gift. You're offensive. You're a go-getter. That's attack. Counterattack is somebody that attacks the attacker. It's a certain gift of you being able to see the combination flow and you be able to go under and counterattack your opponent. It's a certain gift. Anticipation comes right before the counterattack. It's like my brother was that. It's like when you see something come up, like right before you see the counterattack, boom, it's anticipation. There's a certain eye that you have for that. Number 4 is feel. That's more of me. Feel could be something physical, or feel could be something physical, or feel could be just the feel of the fight, the feel of the wrestling match, the feel of the game, like understanding where you're at all times in the match. It could be physical, but it could also just be you being a competitor and just having a good sense of competition, a good feel of the competition, a good feel of the fight. And then the most important one out of them all, and the most dangerous one, is taking risk. You have to take risks, because risk takers, the reason why it's the most important one is because they're all about winning. You know what I'm saying? It's like they will do whatever it takes to win. Their probability of winning goes higher. They have a better chance than the rest of the guys, because they're all about taking risks. And what was your question again? I'm explaining the 5 senses.
What you feel most comfortable with out of those 5 senses,
Okay.
you personally,
Yeah.
and which
Yeah.
of them you lean most on, or you tend to
No,
gravitate most towards?
yeah. Well, my gift is feel. I'm a competitor. I was a great fighter, a great wrestler, but more than that, I was just a way better competitor. You know what I'm saying? So for that reason, I know there's even components into. I'm gonna give you an example. The reason why I feel Demetrius Johnson, 5th round when I fought him, the match was close. It was 2-2 going into the fifth. The winner of the 5th round wins, becomes you defends it, or I become the new flyweight champion. This is why I'm Phil, because there's even acting involved when I compete. The last 20 seconds, knowing that there's 20 seconds left, like I made sure that I pressed Demetrius Johnson the last 20 seconds, pump my fist, like saying, come over. Demetrius Johnson was backpedaling, going backwards, and I started throwing a whole bunch of different combinations that possibly wasn't landing. But you know what that was? I conveyed to the judges that I wanted to fight a little bit more.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I am Phil, because I will use every edge for that. And then I would say after Phil, I would say probably after Phil, I'm either attack or take risk. So I'm Phil, attack, take risk, uh, anticipate, and I think counterattack.
We're definitely going to be putting that in the show notes. All right, so there's a big difference from my personal experience in just straight up competition and combat competition. The level of fear that's involved in combat competitions is just a different kind of experience. I've competed in a lot of different things, never at the level you have, but I do know that there's just a level of fear that comes along with combat sports that is different than like CrossFit, you know what I mean, or running a race or competing in bodybuilding. What do you do with fear?
With fear, the fear are these 4 things. Fear. This is what fear is: false evidence appearing real.
Dude, you got to look at
That's
my,
what fear is.
you have to look at my Instagram stories today. I'm just going to say, look at my Instagram stories today. Because what I
Okay.
put up, let me show you what I put on my Instagram stories. And this is very strange. Look, hold on.
False Evidence
appearing real.
appearing real.
That's what I put on my Instagram stories this morning, bro. That's wild. So I want to, so like, let's talk about that.
I heard that one. I heard that one from Rick Warren. Rick Warren is he's a well-known pastor out in he's got like he's a super smart guy, and I studied him like tremendously. But that's that's what fear is, and then what is courage? What is the opposite of fear? It's courage, but it almost falls back to the same thing because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear, but still yet moving forward. You see what I'm saying? So it's just it all goes back to you challenging your emotions.
Wait, say that again.
Your,
Courage is what?
courage is not having courage is not the absence of fear. Having courage is having fear, but yet still moving forward despite the outcome. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like I like to typically when I examine things like that, I always think of the other perspective. And then you'd be surprised how a lot of these words still kind of intertwine with each other, even though they're the exact opposite. Like look at the meaning. Like there's courage and fear. Like who would know that? Like who would really think about that? People you think people are just courageous and they think they can walk on water? Like no. We all feel nervous. We all feel scared. Who is it that's gonna say, hey, I'll take the leap of faith. I'll go.
Dude, I'm with it. Best
Dude, Mike, you met your match, bro. You met your match. I can tell we see eye to eye on things.
Yo, man, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's really good. Advice is, I think, advice is like, for me, I tend not to hold on to every piece of advice I get, and I don't really try to overanalyze it often, but there are pieces of advice that were given to me throughout my career and my life that were so simple but meant so much. Is there any advice that was given to you that you believe in so much that you pass on to others on a semi-regular basis?
Yeah, advice, man. That's because there's been a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like there's you want advice that I would give to people that I would encourage, like the stuff that I live by in my life.
I mean, either stuff that you've just come up with on your own, or stuff that was given to you as you were coming up.
No, no, yeah, well, there's okay. So I'm gonna break it down to two things, and this is how this will be a great way to end the podcast here. So there's two things. There's two things. There's two things that makes the 1% of the 1%ers, and I call it heart and ability. What is your heart? Your heart is your passion, your will, your desire, determination. Your heart is something you're willing to suffer for in order to obtain. That is your heart. You know what I'm saying? Your heart is not your cardiovascular. Your heart is the goodness of your mind. That's your heart. Ability. Ability is something that's God given, or it's something that's it's God given because some people just have that gift and that ability. Or ability is something that you wrapped over time and time again that you become a master at. But ability is also the ability you finding the right engineers, the right people, to obtain you there. You know what I'm saying? To take you there. So ability has a lot to do with you have you're a Ferrari. You cannot have a Honda mechanic for for a luxurious car like a Ferrari. No, the Ferrari needs a Ferrari mechanic, somebody high upscale. So that's recognizing, understanding your ability. So then what happens sometimes is a lot of times when people do have ability, we'll notice this a lot. Because when I moved to the Olympic training center at a very young age, I remember there was these guys that were chasing their dreams for years, man. Trying to make 3, 4 Olympic cycles literally. And I was a 17-year-old kid. And 17-year-old kid, by the time I was 21, made the Olympic team, won Olympic gold. But what was it that separated me? Because there was guys that had ability but had no heart. You see what I'm saying? So it's your job to connect the two. It's your job to be able to connect the heart and the ability. Because what happens is, even when people do have a lot of heart, a lot of passion, a lot of will, their ability is just not connecting with their heart, or the ability is not connecting with the heart. They may be really good at something, but they may not love it. They may not be willing to suffer to obtain it. So in order for you to become the 1% of the 1%ers, it's your job to connect the mind and body. It's your job to connect the heart, the passion, the will, the desire, the determination, something that you want to suffer in order to obtain the goodness of your mind with your ability, with your gift, with the things that you repped over time and time again, understanding that, putting yourself in the best positions in deep waters as much as possible in order for you to accomplish that. And you'll see that. So I always tell people it's always important for you to question one or the other. It's okay. It's okay to doubt. It's okay to question and doubt, but it's going to be one of the two. It's either you love it or you don't have the ability for it, or you have the ability for it or you don't love it. And when you have those two and you're able to connect both of them, that's when you become the 1% of the 1%ers.
Fuck yeah.
Amen.
Dude, I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna edit that to be the last. I just have to ask you one last question. Habits, I think, are very, very important. I think habits have defined a lot of what keeps me going in my day to day. Are there any habits that you have that you do consistently? Be it physical habits, mental habits, morning routine stuff that you do before you train, after you train, recovery things that you can share with us?
Um, it's a lot, man. It depends on. It depends exactly what I'm doing. Like, even not necessarily like, even now, like that I'm done fighting. I never did journals or anything like that when I was competing. And the reason why I never did journals is not that I was, because it was just always in my mind. Like, the stuff was always reminiscing here. You know what I'm saying? I was so, there was an obsession. There is a passion here that I've had to accomplish something. But now that I'm doing business, like, I have to write things down. So it changes things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally got to start my day writing what I have to get done and what I have to do. But when I was competing prior to that, um, because my whole focus was just, there's never a plan B. It was all or nothing. Like, that was just me. When it's like, well, don't put all your eggs in one basket. No, I put everything in that one basket. And if it doesn't, and if whatever, for whatever reason it doesn't, then it just doesn't happen. But I invest and I do everything. So I guess depends on the phase of my life. How is it that the routines that I do, but it depends because there's so much to it. I'm a sponge. I love to learn from everybody. If I can, I can go out with the old and with the new. I think if there's a habit that I do have, that's probably it. Like, there's no ego to the routines that I have. If I have to make something up for the better, I'd be willing to do that.
Henry Cejudo, man, you're the fucking man. I am so grateful for having you on this podcast. The value here is just enormous, and anybody who's listening, I'm sure, is like just fired up to either get their day going, to finish their day, to get their workout, step it up even further. You're really a unique guy, man, and I'm super grateful for having you. So thank you very much, dude. Do you think you were born or made, my man?
Yeah,
Born or
no.
made? I always ask.
Yeah, you got to hit me with that. Do I feel like I was born? I feel like I was born to be made or made to be born. If that makes any sense, because
Born to be made.
it's both, man.
Yeah.
Born to be made, made to be born, made to live. So I'm gonna hit you with both of them. Born to be made and made to be born. How
Oh
about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I'll take it, man. I'll take it. I believe it. I'm rooting for Mikey Boy tonight. I hope he I'm sure he's gonna do his thing. I'm a little nervous for Mr. Jones.
Yeah, so the man, we'll see. I hope so. I hope so. I'm actually been nervous too, man, a little bit.
Yeah. It's gonna be,
So
I think it's gonna be a good one, dude. So I really appreciate it, man. Until the next time. Oh, one last thing. Bioaccelerator.
uh-huh.
Um, you've been down there. I was supposed to go on November 8th, and because of the pandemic,
Uh-huh.
I decided to postpone, but I know that it's done wonders for you. Uh,
Yeah.
is it just off the chart?
Oh man, Bio Accelerator, brother. If you haven't done it, you have to go, man. You have to get the stem cells in your body. I had a bad neck for the longest. Ever since I got stem cells on my neck, dude, I've been 100%. It's crazy. It's crazy to feel normal again. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's crazy to feel that I could still do another 12 years of fighting if I really wanted to because I'm healthy. You know what I'm saying? And the biggest thing of reason why, I retired even from wrestling was because of my neck. My neck it was just killing me. Stem cells went in there. I didn't start feeling it. I started feeling it immediately, but I didn't start feeling it like 100% till maybe like 4 or 5 months into it. You're like, oh my God, I can look at my phone down, I can type down, like it's not hurting me. It's a trip.
How many
It's
treatments
a
have you
trip,
had?
bro. A big shout out to just one, but I was there for 5 days. I recommend anybody that has any pain. I don't get paid for this either, by the way. It's just out of the goodness of my heart. Ankles. I got shot up in my ankles, my knees. I mean, they did a whole scan on my body, so they know that with infrared lighting from my shoulders, places that I didn't think I needed it, which they hit me, and dude, I feel like a brand new man. So a
Wow.
big shout out to Bio Accelerator. Michael down there, he's done an amazing thing. Super generous. He's the one that connected us, and just extremely thankful, man, for companies like that.
Dude, get back to your day. Thank you for taking this time. It is much appreciated. You're a legend and you inspire so many people, man. So just keep paving the path, my brother.
No problem. Thanks again, Mike. I appreciate it, brother. You have a good one, bro.
You too, man.
Peace, man.
Later, Holmes.
Later.